I'm Krista Patton, and I'm here with Paul Kanoki here in his lovely parlor here in Rochester, and I'm here to pick up this pedal harp built by Noterman in about 1815. Paul's going to show me how to take care of it. Paul is a treasure in our community of historical harps. So you can see there's a forest of instruments behind us that we probably never would have known of or even more had the pleasure of hearing if we didn't have his expertise and dedication and cleverness to bring them into playing and to bring them to us. So thank you, Paul.
Oh, you're very welcome. I should also say that this harp has a crochet action, which is very different from the modern pedal harp action. And there are very few technicians in the world at this point who know how to regulate this kind of harp action. So that's one of the purposes of this video, is not only to instruct Krista so she can take care of her new old harp, but also so other technicians out there in the world will be able to help revive these instruments.
Yes.
This harp is a little over 200 years old. It dates from about 1815. On a modern pedal harp, you have a disc with two prongs, and when you step on the pedal, the connected disc turns and the two prongs grab the string to shorten the sounding length and raise the pitch by a half step.
Right.
This works on a completely different principle. The way this works is when you step on the pedal, the associated crochet or hook gets pulled in towards the neck, and it grabs the string and pulls it against a half step fret.
Right.
So the advantage of this system is it gives you much more solid bridge.
Right.
For making your half step, so you get a clearer tone.
I see.
If the harp's regulated correctly.
Right.
The crochet actions, there's a lot I like about them, speaking as a harp technician. They're very well engineered, in some ways better engineered than the modern double action, and they have a lot more points of adjustment. So you can regulate them very precisely, and you have to make a lot fewer compromises than you usually do with a modern pedal harp.
Oh, wow. How wonderful.
The first things you want to do, like if you're resuscitating a harp that hasn't been played in 100 years, like this one apparently hadn't, is you start out with your initial setup. And the first part of that is to adjust the depth of these guide pins. And what you want to do is you want to have the string just missing the half step fret when it's played loudly.
I see. Okay.
I've seen some regulators that they try and get the string halfway between the fret and the crochet, which is really not necessary. It gets it too far away from the fret, and then the crochet puts a lot of wear on it as it's moving in. Okay, so you've got your guide pin adjusted so your string is just missing the fret when it's played hard. You don't want it too far out. These are adjusted either if it's too far out, you need to get a punch and a little hammer and tap it in gently. Or if it's too far in, you need to get a pair of pliers and a little piece of leather to pad it and pull it back in. Sometimes you just have to pull it all the way out and start over.
Right.
Because after 200 years, they're usually pretty corroded and not working as smoothly as they once did.
Needle nose or...
I just use slip joint pliers
Right.
and a little piece of leather so you don't scrape up the guide pin.
Right.
So, and the other thing is, if you're just doing the initial regulation on a harp that hasn't been in use in a long time, what you want to make sure is that all the crochets are screwed out far enough that they're not striking against anything when the pedal's pushed down. Because I've worked on a couple of harps where someone had screwed the crochets all the way in against the neck, so the mechanism was completely locked up.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, because like if they're trying to move in but they're already all the way in,
then
the action isn't going to be able to move.
Right.
So what I usually do is screw them out, just as far as I can. And leave them turned up so I don't have to worry about them striking against the fret or constantly impinging on the string. This gets us into oiling.
Oh yeah, some fancy feast. Definitely
Yes, cat food can and a watercolor brush for oiling.
Right.
Because you want to make sure.
And this is what kind of oil?
You want to use Singer, brand specific. Singer sewing machine oil.
All-purpose machine oil.
Yeah, but made by Singer because they make the best quality oil, and the stuff you get like at the grocery store or your average hardware store is going to get gummy after a few years.
Okay, good. Yeah. So there's your Singer.
Right. So what I like to do to get a small enough amount of oil onto the threaded stem here is just use a watercolor brush and brush some on. And the first time you're doing this, you're going to want to do that and let it sit overnight so the oil can penetrate. So you can then unscrew the crochet without either breaking the stem or the crochet.
Yep.
I have broken crochets in my lifetime. It's not a good feeling.
No.
It does not make me happy.
It doesn't. There's like.
Because then you have to start switching them around
Oh
from.
my gosh. Then you can't time travel to like get another one.
Oh, the other thing about lubrication is that sometimes they will hang up where they pass through the wood of the neck. And you want to use graphite in there. Just use a pencil lead and scribble on the crochet stem and work it back and forth a few times.
Okay.
And that pretty much always frees it up.
Right. So this will sit overnight and
let it penetrate, and then you should be able to unscrew the crochets.
Right.
Okay. So, one of the things that makes these harps very different from modern harps is that the mechanism is completely enclosed. So to access it, you have to take out the screws.
Oh boy.
You can see here that it originally had a wedge. Most of them originally had wedges.
Right behind this piece here.
To hold the action cover in, but given that you've got a loose part the size of the thumbnail, they pretty much always got lost.
It's probably just for show. This is a spectacular, good for me, spectacular screw through a spectacular crack. But we will not be scared by such things. Right there. Oh, that one's nice and loose already. Wait, righty-tighty. Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, that's worth knowing because on a modern pedal harp they have some reverse threads.
This doesn't seem to be moving in any direction.
Yeah, maybe stripped out.
Yeah. Doesn't. There we go.
There we go.
All right, you're on the other side, so you
And to keep them in order as you take them out, because if you're dealing with anything before the later 19th century, all the screws are handmade, so each one is different.
These all look like replacement screws to me.
Yeah, this is from later on.
Yeah.
The cover just slides off. And there we have all the fun gizmos.
And there it is.
So, and one thing you want to do periodically is just go over the whole mechanism, and you'll see there's a steel mounting plate that carries the mechanism, and just go over all the screws you can reach.
I see.
And make sure they're snug, because with change in the weather, they will work loose.
Looks like there's one missing here, but there's
there's usually some missing.
3 others right around.
It's one of those things where you have to do the best you can. And some of the screws are going to be buried under the mechanism.
Right.
I would love to see what shop tools they had.
Yeah.
To get to some of these.
To some of them.
But just, go over the whole thing, do the best you can.
I guess you can sort of. They must have had very, thin, the post of the screwdriver.
Yeah, I think it was basically just a metal rod that had a bit ground at the end, which I should actually just sit down and make myself.
Yeah.
But we're back to I'm too lazy.
Well, you kind of need an anvil for that, right?
No, you just need a piece of metal
stock.
stock.
Really get to, for example.
Right.
Yeah. And this one, not either, really.
Yeah.
And this one,
The critical ones are up in here.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because this is where you want to have the most support for the harp neck.
Uh-huh.
Because it's in this area where harp necks twist. When you see a harp with the neck turned over, it's because it's twisted in this area.
I see. Righty tighty.
Yeah. And you'll also see this is where all the springs are to return the mechanism.
Oh wow, these are springs?
Yes, those are all clock springs.
Oh my gosh. See? Swiss watchmakers.
Well, it was clockmakers that made the harp mechanisms. The harp builder would contract out to the clockmakers to make the mechanisms.
It's not something. Well, I didn't get to any of these because, well, I think I got that one, but there's about 3 of them in here I couldn't get to.
So yeah, so then once you have the screws tightened...
This one's going a little bit to...
Yeah, I noticed that.
Maybe just... Is that how... Could that be?
I think that's the way it always was.
How it always was.
Just because, the apprentice was doing it on a Monday or something.
Right.
Once you got the screws tightened, then you go over the whole mechanism with your cat food can.
Your cat food can of Singer sewing
machine oil, and make sure everything is just lightly oiled.
So you're oiling, what do you call that? That's where the rods...
These are the cranks, where it transfers the vertical motion of the rods would just hook in to the crank. That's another thing I like about these harps. It's so much easier to get the rods in and out than in a modern harp.
Oh, really?
Well, in a modern harp, they screw into the upper action coupler, and a lot of times they will freeze in there.
Oh, God.
I have one line in Healy that stood on its head for 3 days in the studio, getting PB Blaster dripped into it before I could get the rod out.
The things we do.
So yeah, so you want to oil, but here the rods just hook in.
Oh, okay, yeah. They just sort of hook right down into a little slot.
Yeah. You may want to get a set of dental tools for maneuvering them.
Dental tools is a very broad notion to me.
Like the little hooky things that
the
they
hooky
scrape your
things.
teeth with.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because then you can move it around.
It's easier to get a hold of them. There's not really enough room to get the pliers on there.
And if you want to have them come out of that slot, you mean? Or,
yeah.
Yeah. To disconnect them?
Right. And here again, there's going to be layers of the mechanism that you're not going to be able to reach because they're just too buried.
And those are little springs, right?
Do the best you can. These
springs?
are axles.
Oh, they're axles.
Okay, so now we come to removing the base.
Okay.
These are the bolts.
Oh, I use this to take the bolts out.
Yes.
Oh.
On a well-built harp.
Are you sure you handed me the right thing? Isn't that up there?
No, they are thoughtfully constructed that you can take the base off with a tuning key.
That's totally cool.
Yeah, they still do that with modern harps.
Oh.
Other way. There you go.
Lefty loosey. Well, I was an oboe player, so I would not know that about modern harps. Wow, this is exciting. It's like I just never in my 1,000 years that I am old thought you would ever dare to take.
I usually just leave them resting, pulled out of the base of the harp itself, but resting in their holes.
Okay.
Because there again, these are definitely handmade and hand filed. So you don't want to mix them up because the threads are slightly different on each of them.
So when they just become loose, then that's as far out as
you've done your thing.
Look at the wear on this one compared to this one. I wonder what they were doing with that left foot.
I don't know, but you'll see. You'll feel the ghosts of the other people that have handled it as you see where it's worn.
Yeah.
Okay, so then just let's pull this off. And you can turn it upside down.
Hello, pedals.
Okay, now you adjust the rod length by screwing this nut in and out. And you'll see they have we use different methods for locking this nut into place. In this case, the top of the nut is slightly curved and it fits into a matching curve.
Oh, wow.
In the underside of the pedal bar. So that curve keeps it from screwing itself in or unscrewing itself.
Oh, that's very clever.
Now, what you want to do when you're adjusting the rod length is you'll be able to feel as you move the pedal. It comes to a point where it stops. It's reached the limit of the movement. And you want that limit to be even with the end of the pedal stud.
I see.
So that when it's reached its limit, it'll just slide over with no lost motion.
This thing right here.
Onto the pedal stud. We also see that, unlike modern harps, these don't have felts. They're not.
That's the pedal stud, so it has to go no
It has
further
to
than
just
that.
match the end of the pedal stud.
Right.
Because since these don't have felt wrappings, like modern harps, not having any lost motion is what keeps the movement quiet.
I see. Right. Otherwise, they sort of slap down onto it and make a noise.
Well, otherwise, when you release it, it'll click up against the up against the end of the pedal stud.
Right.
But this is how it's kept quiet. You'll see there's also leather pads.
There are leather pads. Oh, glued to where it rests.
Glued to where it rests.
No,
so that helps keep it from thumping.
Yeah.
If they get noisy, I usually, at like the grocery store, you can get like peel and press black felt or green felt dots. I use those a lot. So yeah.
So that's all regulated by these.
Yep, and you just need, sometimes the tuning key will fit. I find a lot of the times what you really need is a harpsichord tuning key, because these nuts will be a slightly different size than the tuning pin bits.
I see. It's
when these were new, they came with the tuning key. Actually had like 3 things that stuck out. One was the bit for the tuning pins, another was the bit for these.
I see. Yeah.
And then the third arm would be like a screwdriver or something.
Wow.
So you had like this 3-in-1 tool.
So in order to turn this, because it does fit right up into this.
Yeah, sometimes you'll have to like move the pedal out to give yourself some room.
Because I don't see how it. I guess it does turn. It's just round. It's because it's actually like a square peg and a round, square thing, but it's round all down on the bottom, so or where it meets this.
Yeah, it's just rounded onto one surface.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just use a harpsichord tuning key.
Yeah.
To turn that. And the other thing you want to check periodically is you'll see right here. These are the ends of a big iron staple that comes out here.
Oh, okay.
And this is what holds the bottom of the column.
Yeah.
So once in a while you want to check and make sure the nuts
are tight.
in this opening are tight.
Because then the column will get loosey-goosey.
It just makes me feel better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the harps really held together by the tension of the strings.
Right.
But if you keep it tight, that's going to transfer the pressure of the column into the bottom body block. So, and the other thing is that down here, there are yet more screws.
Of course there are.
To tighten, because there's like a metal platform that all the pedals mount onto.
Right.
And you really want to go over these like once a year and make sure they're all tight. Because this has to withstand a lot of pressure from your foot pushing the pedal down.
Is it better to check them in the winter or in the summer?
Check them in the winter when it's drier.
Because then when in the summer it swells, but does that put more pressure on it because they're in there tighter because you tightened them in the winter?
Right, yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah. On some harps, they're actually a screw, so you should be able to screw them in and out as a further point of adjustment, but usually they're beyond being moved anymore.
I see.
Because they've gotten so worn, the screw slot is barely visible. Here again, oiling the lower trap work is very important. The most critical point is where the pedal itself rubs against the secondary lever. If that's not kept well oiled, that can really slow down the action.
Really, even though it's just like a touch point, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I see, but it does slide on it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, do all the pivot points. And
Can't see them. Oh, just like where they on either side here?
yeah.
Running out of my Singer sewing machine oil.
And if you get something that's really sluggish, you can take these screws out and clean them and get oil in properly. But yeah, if you do, for most of the pedal trap work, some of the screws are buried. So if you want to get to the screw, you've got to take this one out first.
Yeah.
And that can be kind of a pain.
Right.
The only noise you'll usually get from the pedals is where they knock on the sides of the gate. So yeah, just stick on the felt dots.
Little felt dots from the grocery store.
Yeah, they're very non-invasive. They're easy to apply, and you can take them back off without doing any damage.
And it just goes. Let's see, this thing goes here.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that. Oops.
Yeah, I usually just start on my hand.
Right.
Make sure everything's lined up.
There it goes. Yeah. It's just such a clever idea.
Okay, so pretty much all that's left is to adjust the intonation of the harp, and that is done mostly by moving the frets up and down. There's a little screw. You can just loosen the screw, and then the fret slides up and down, sort of like the adjustable pins on a modern harp.
Right.
And your other slightly less fruitful resource is if it's still not sharp enough, you can screw the crochet in farther to tighten the string more.
Oh, so it sort of bends it more heavily over the fret.
Yeah, it increases the tension on the string and brings the pitch up. The downside is that it wears the string out a lot faster.
Of course, yeah.
So
it's kind of like Stratocaster, like bending of notes.
Exactly.
That kind of thing, yeah. Wow.
I'm not sure exactly of all the history on this harp. I had to turn a lot of the frets upside down.
Interesting.
To get it into equal temperament.
Do you think that's where it would have originally been?
I'm pretty sure there has just been discovered.
This one's.
Yeah, some of them are okay right side up. Some of them had to go upside down. But Noderman was a very early adopter of equal temperament because he understood the advantages that it had for the pedal harp and being able to have enharmonic synonyms.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you will have to change, just a slight change in the angle.
Of the crochet.
Of the crochet will stop a buzz or get it in tune.
The angle.
How far up or down it's turned.
Oh, I see. Angle up or down.
Yeah. Sometimes you'll also have to put a washer behind the fret to get the fret in the right place to meet with the crochet properly. There's a lot of fudge factors going on. Sometimes the crochets will get loose. Like that one's okay. I wouldn't want any looser.
Right. I mean loose like in its hole.
Just it's worked as the threads have gotten loose.
Yeah, because what happens if they become jiggly as they're being
and
moved?
They won't stay in position.
Yeah.
Then what you have to do is take it off and put like a piece of thread through the hole in the crochet and then screw it back on the stem to take up the slack.